Roll for Crit is made possible thanks to the support of viewers like you and our patrons on our Patreon page.
You can become a patron for just $1 a month at patreon.com/rollforcrit.
Welcome to this Roll for Crit discussion video. Today's video actually spawned up from a review we did recently. If you don't know, we recently reviewed Tellstones, which is a game from Riot Games that's about tricking your opponent with these stones and testing their memory. And it's supposed to be a game that's actually played in the world of Runeterra, which is the world that their first game, League of Legends, is based in. And it made me think about how there are a lot of games that whether someone designs it later to put it in or we see it on the screen or in a book and then we want to see it played. And similar to the Star Wars games Jonathan picked up in Disney with the little chess pieces, though I think in the movie it's holographic, if I recall.
Oh yeah, it's called Holochess in some circles.
But like, how does this work? Is it enjoyable to play, or is it just more fun prop pieces for us? And does it make a difference if we see it in the movie like Star Wars, or if we take the Riot Games when they designed a game to exist in that world? Because to my knowledge, that game wasn't really mentioned or maybe not significant in the world of League of Legends beforehand.
Right. It's an interesting thing, and it's not something that's too common, but there's a fair number of, it seems to crop up mainly in fantasy and science fiction universes, where they have their own games in universe because I guess they decided that it's lame to just be playing poker if you can have a spaceship. Like, they must have a space version of poker or a space version of chess, whatever the case may be. When we were looking up some of this stuff beforehand, and there is a Wikipedia page that lists what seem to be all the fictional games from different fictional universes. We named a few. We also, of course, saw Paisho from Avatar: The Last Airbender. That's a big one. But
oh yeah,
like all of them have. Saivas is the one I hear a lot that's from Game of Thrones. And yeah, it was interesting, playing this one recently, as you said, which was invented first and foremost as a game versus something like the Star Wars games that you can now pick up at Disney parks that had to be based around something people saw in a movie. And I think that's the more challenging approach, although it's maybe more fun because for the ones that are like more iconic, that's what people want to see and want to be able to buy and play because they remember from the movie or whatever it is. But, often in those other universes, I think those games were designed to look cool for 2 minutes or less on screen. And, I don't know how well their rules always adapt to reality, because it's the line you have to walk, right, between making it seem like the actual authentic thing and making it an actual playable game, and what's more important.
And that's the thing. I feel like compared to the Star Wars ones, I feel like the only reason to really play them is because you like Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the games themselves aren't crazy. I think the Holochess might be better if it was made on more of a VR setting, honestly, or something. I think trying to make it a physical board game, it didn't work as well.
Or AR, I guess, would be more appropriate for a hologram.
Something digital. I think a video game in essence for that one. The card game one looks a little better, but like we said, it's almost just like poker. But that could be part of it because it does make sense these worlds should just have a poker, a chess, or something. The only game I can think of where I feel like it doesn't feel like one of those basic starter games of our world, the chess of our world, the 50 classic games on the Nintendo.
Yeah.
Because is actually Yu-Gi-Oh! Because that's actually a big card game.
I didn't even think about that because that's so... It's
different because it's a trading card game, yes. It's not just a board game.
It's just so ubiquitous. Like, in my head, there never was one or the other. Like, those two things just have always existed. But you're right. That's a fictional game.
Even then, like, if you watch the first season, I don't know how many seasons it is, but the early seasons of
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Or if
you read the first issues.
Right. They're very loose with their rules. I don't know if you remember some of the stuff they could do, like... I made your oceans disappear because I played the moon card. Right. In real life, the moon just gives like 300 attack or defense or something. The dark types, I think. They added extra weird sciencey stuff, but it was cool to watch. But it seems they didn't just follow the rules of the TV show. So like, no, that that doesn't make sense. But like the rest are like, how do we make sense that Iroh's move makes sense, or that what Chewie did? So it seems like they actually were the ones who abandoned trying to do exactly what the shows or comics tried to do, and it seems to work better for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably what you have to do. I think most people will probably be more just pretty forgiving of that as long as the game is fun. But again, it depends on like going back to the Holochess board. If you are marketing it as a game, it's not a great game. But if you're marketing it as a decoration, and it just happens to, yeah, you can play it if you really want to, and that's just kind of neat that you can do that. I think that works. Whereas the other Star Wars game, Sabacc, which is just a card game, I mean, you're not really going to display that because it's just cards. So that one, I think there's more pressure on it. But if it's something where it actually just looks cool, then maybe you want it to be set up in it, or like Star Trek's Holo. I don't know. There's 3D chess that they do. I don't know if anyone's made a version of that because I don't know if anything can make
You
that.
mean like an official version?
An official. I'm sure there's fan made ones, but it just seems like it makes no sense. Like, why would you? Who wants more layers of chess? I don't know. It's kind of a dumb idea when you break it down. But that's one that I would totally want that just sitting on a display table or on a shelf somewhere because it looks awesome. But I don't know that I really want to play it. So I think the important thing is that you get that messaging out there that people, if they're buying one of these, they understand it's either going to be a good game or just something that's kind of cool, or it's like, I think Sabacc or even Tellstones for me, like they both land right in the middle where it's like, it's not the best game in the world, but you know what? You could have some fun with it. You could go a few rounds and bring it out once in a while. And it's cool that it's from this thing that you like.
I am curious in your thoughts of Tellstones, because that's sort of the opposite. Their world was already made, and they're like, what's something they do there? Let's try to make a game on it. Now, this is a much simpler game, and I think it's hard to do maybe something like a Gloomhaven. I don't think they print that out in medieval times. I mean, it's fantasy, but swords and stuff. And I know there's a steampunk world, but it's not like modern day cars and stuff. I don't know if there's there's mass printing and internet in Runeterra. But like, do you think would that make sense, or would that just be a game? Like, for example, something like Grand Theft Auto or Watch Dogs, which is very closely adjacent to our world.
Mm-hmm.
If they had a board game, would that just be a board game? Like, would that feel like it belonged in another world?
Well, I actually now in recent memory, I'm thinking of in The Last of Us. I think part 1 and part 2, in certain areas you explore, you see fake board games they made up, the boxes.
A lot of, I feel like that's a little different because sometimes you'll see fake board games of like Dose or something. It's like it's just trying to play off of a Hasbro game or something.
Right.
I was trying to come up with an analogy of Battleship. I was going to say Starship. I'm like, I think that probably exists. I think there's a spaceship version of Battleship.
Yeah, right. It's a little different. But yeah, I mean, I think that's cool. I mean, I think if you can make a good game based on it, why not try to do it? I just thought of another example, which is very recent. From the movie Onward from Pixar, they did publish a version of the RPG they play in that movie that you can play in real life. So it's a role-playing game and it's based on D&D and stuff, but that's another one that I think works pretty well. There's all kinds of different ways that you can approach it, and I do think it's fun, especially for what these tend to be nerdier types of media. That
yeah, I remember you listing off the things that have made games. It was like Battlestar, Doctor Who, Star Wars,
Farscape.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
it wasn't like Seinfeld. Actually, there's the Cones of Dunshire.
Cones of Dunshire, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one to point out.
Wasn't that a Kickstarter they tried to make?
Yeah, I think that one crashed and burned. But this, I think when you're really into the people who are obsessed with those shows and things, it can be really cool and fun to have something like that. That's not just a prop and not just a stuffed animal or whatever, but something you can interact with. That's cool.
Yeah, look. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you've seen the shelves when we used to be together on the back of the set. I have plenty of fun little props and stuff. It's just interesting when you want to have, I guess, some functionality. I don't know why the games are a little bit different that I hold them high standard. It's because I play a lot, but it's not like if I have a prop of the the dragon dagger from Power Rangers. I'm not like, why isn't this cutting things? But I get Tellstones. I'm like, why? I'm comparing it to Gloomhaven.
Right. It's not doesn't happen that often, so it's a little bit different, I suppose. Yeah, and again, I think it comes down to how they present it. How do they market it and everything, and what are your expectations? What are you okay with as a thing? But in general, there's so few that exist. Really, there aren't actually that many fictional games. Board games, at least, if you want to get into, then there's stuff like Quidditch and things, but that's a whole other realm. That's not our forte. That I think it is cool when you adapt those things. And there probably is a Quidditch board game. I know there's a board game of Bender Ball or whatever from Legend of Korra. So that's another thing, adapting non-board games that are fictional to a board game setting.
Well, I feel like then at that point, you're just making a copyrighted game.
It's a thin line. It's a thin line, but we won't get into it in this video. But it's fun, and I would definitely like to hear from people watching what some of their favorite examples of this. I'm sure there's a few that we missed. I even thought of some that I didn't think of before we started filming during this video. And what you prefer, and does it have to be a great playable game? I mean, a lot of it also probably depends on the price and the look and feel of it. If you're going to be spending a lot of money for it, yeah, it'd be better if it's a good game. But if it's something that's, well,
like you said, if it looks nice, sometimes that's all it needs to do. I would like to know if there's any game that we haven't tried, because it's not like we've played all of them, that you really think does rival the modern day game era. Like, is there a game that you'd be like, yeah, I think it's at least rivaling with Catan, or dare I say Gloomhaven, probably not that high, but like at least something that I think would be, if it wasn't attached to a property, you think it'd still sell relatively well.
Or is there a game from a fictional game that hasn't been adapted yet that you think should be and like would make a really good game? Maybe someone should do Cones of Dunshire. They got to figure that out.
I have not seen that episode, so I don't know anything about that. I just know the name.
Man.
And
you haven't watched Parks and Rec all the way through?
No, I have barely watched it, maybe like 2 or 3 episodes.
Well, it's on Netflix there.
And now this is the comment section being filled with everyone telling me how I'm terrible for not watching it.
I think we've moved past that era. It's over and done with. But anyway, you can still do that if you'd like in the comments and answer any of the other questions we had. And we'll see what the future brings, what other games may come out. Maybe the next Jumanji. We need to go back to the Jumanji games. I just
Are we counting the video game?
Yeah, I guess we're counting the video game too. I just thought we had to mention Jumanji during this episode, because that would have been every 5 comments. Anyway, this has been Roll for Crit. My name is Jonathan.
My name is Will, and we'll see you next time at the tabletop.
That's what we say.
Something new.
That's what we say. Here's an idea. Support our Patreon or like and subscribe to this channel for more.
Fagulu Miktawa audio expansion Wakana Cthulhu awesome.